I was listening to the promo coming in, and it was talking. I was talking. It was me. It was my voice talking about not abdicating the education of our children to the school system. And I would just go one step further. It's not just about facts and stats and things that they should know as we are fully into Black History Month. I was listening to Laree Daniel Favors earlier. She was sitting in the 10 a.m. slot talking about Carter G. Woodson, who I'm also going to talk about today, but differently. And I want to shout her out because she handled the troll in a way that I was like, I don't know if I'm capable of doing that. I don't think I have the restraint, and I have far too many sound effects. But she completely disarmed him, didn't let him get oxygen, which is my thing, and gave us a history lesson on language and ebonics. I was like, this is amazing. Anyway, as I was listening to her today, I was thinking about Black History Month because, as I mentioned last week, I was tasked with, what are you doing? And I'm like, the same thing we do every day. But I said, now is an opportunity to actually take the education further. And doing these classes with Carr on Saturday have also inspired me, because it's not just about giving you, this person was born this day and they came from this place, they were born in bondage, or their parents were born in bondage. And I'm going to give you some of that. But it's, why should we care? Why is this important? Why is this person someone that everyone should know? And that's going to be, for me, Carter G. Woodson is first because he is the father of Black History Month, and I would be remiss not mentioning him. But the next 19 people that we're going to talk about this month, maybe people you've never heard of before. And I think that's important, because this is a time, I believe, for tertiary knowledge. This is an era where we should be leaning into our understanding of the world that we live in, but also how it connects to our past so that we can move forward into our present and our future. I think many of us are living, these lives that we have to start all over again because we're not building upon institutional knowledge. We're not building on the work of the ancestors, and it's exhausting. So today we're going to be talking with Latasha Brown about building, but I don't want us to build from scratch. We shouldn't have to. Generations have been here doing things. We owe it to them for the work that they did to build on the work and not have to start from scratch. And some of that also has to speak to integrity, has to speak to morality, things we don't talk enough about in this country. To come up, many of us, our ancestors came over in holds of ships and built a culture and a world here. But before the Mayflower, we were doing things. And this man, Carter G. Woodson, devoted his entire life to reclaiming that history and making sure that it was inculcated not just into the school system, but into life itself. And Black History Week now turned into Black History Month. And for me, Karen Hunter, it is Black History every day. But born December 19th, 1875, Carter G. Woodson's both parents were in bondage. Of course, they were born in bondage. In New Canton, Virginia is where he was born, which was right near a coal mining town. His father actually ran away and fought for the Union during the Civil War, fought for his own freedom. He was a farmer and a carpenter. And Carter G. Woodson, while he was farming, because, he had to work, wanted to learn. And it was interesting when he worked in the coal mines, and I've heard this story many times. He would read newspapers. He really crafted his reading to the people who could not read, and they actually tasked him to read to them in the coal mines. Afterwards, they would convene. The men would convene, and Carter G. Woodson would tell them what was going on all over the world, all over the country, through these mostly Black newspapers. But that was where the conversations would be had. And he was a natural born teacher, of course, graduated from high school at the age of 20 because he was working, to feed himself. He was able to graduate high school, went to Berea College in Kentucky, which was founded in 1855. I think this is important because Berea College was the first in the Southern United States to be first co-ed. Both men and women were taught there, and racially integrated. And it charged no tuition. So in many ways, Berea College should be the framework or the foundation for all schools in this country. Integrated, racially, men and women taught both. And this is 1855, it was founded, and free tuition. So Carter G. Woodson got a 4-year degree in 2 years. He got his bachelor's in literature, which is near and dear to my heart because I too have an English lit degree. And then he went to the Philippines. and taught from 1903 to 1907. Now, this little fact is where I go down the rabbit hole. And what we're going to be doing every day is I'm going to give you breadcrumbs that you're going to follow, right? I'm going to give you little nuggets. For me, as I was studying about Carter G. Woodson, this Philippine thing stuck out because I was like, what did a black man, how did he end up in the Philippines? Now, that's a story for you to follow. But what I did not know was that this Philippines was called, it was an unincorporated territory of the United States in 1903. From 1901 to 1935, the Philippines was part of the United States. Did you know that? I did not. So as I learned, I teach. When he came back from the Philippines, which again was an unincorporated territory of the United States from 1903 to 1907 when he was there, he decided to enroll in Harvard to follow after one of his idols, one of his educational, his intellectual idols, W.E.B. Du Bois. It's Du Bois, not Dubois. He was not French. And actually, W.B. Du Bois tells you how to say his name. It's Du Bois. And you can Google search that. So I know there's some folk out there who, like to fix their color. It's Dubois. It was never Dubois. It was always Du Bois because he's not French. That said, Carter G. Woodson continued to teach. He became a principal of an all-black high school in D.C., was the second black man to graduate from Harvard with a PhD. The first was W.B. Du Bois. And then he went to Howard on faculty. But in the summer of 1919, and I've talked about these this summer quite a bit on these airwaves, because before Black Wall Street was decimated, 1919 happened. And that was a time of extreme racial intensity. And I don't want to say intensity. This is when white folk were doing what they did on the insurrection of 2021. Out there in the streets mad, out there in the streets destroying, out there in the streets killing and maiming and destroying, as I mentioned. I want to say destroying again. But between May and September of 1919, more than 1,000 Black people were killed. Several Black communities were decimated, similarly to Rosewood and Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, decimated. And it was crazy because you're on the precipice of something. The stock market hadn't crashed yet, but there was still this sense that if you are coming up in this country because you have the skill, 400 years of labor, you figured out how to work as a community, and you're building something, someone's always going to want to take what's yours. Someone's always going to be jealous and look over and say, why do you have a piano? And so this is nothing new, which is why we can never look at these, they call them racial uprisings. No, they're insurrections, they're racist riots, they are domestic terror, acts of domestic terror. You can't look at them in an isolated way. The Red Summer of 1919 is directly connected to what happened in Tulsa, directly connected to what happened in Rosewood, directly connected, right? So as you look at this, Carter G. Woodson saw what was happening and decided to do something about it. And this is where Black History Week was born. And he wrote, we should emphasize not Negro history, but the Negro in history. What we need is not a history of the selected races or nations, but the history of the world, void of national bias, race, hate, and religious prejudice. There should be no indulgence in undue eulogy of the Negro. The case of the Negro is well taken care of when it is shown how he has far influenced the development of civilization. And on that, Carter G. Woodson, I hope you guys go down the rabbit hole. And let me tell y'all brought to you by Hyundai. And we're going to talk more as the weeks go on. I'm looking forward to the others. This one was a layup. This is easy. I imagine everybody knows who Carter G. Woodson is. And now you know a little bit more. And I hope you study the Red Summer of 1919 and find out more about the Philippines, because that's the purpose of these. I did not finish talking about Carter G. Woodson. I'm sorry, not at all. The thing that I also, because it's going to be nuggets and everybody, I'm not going to give just, they were born here, they died here, and they did blah, 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 because you could do that. Every single Wikipedia is going to give you that. I want to give you the things that will give it context for you. And the thing that I really wanted to talk about, not just 1919, that Red Summer, not just, him teaching other people how to read, or learning how to read and then sharing that information. I wanted to talk about a little bit about his relationship to children, because for me, that is foundational. Carter G. Woodson was known as kind of like a sour or not, I won't call him sour, very fierce and intense, serious, stern man, except when he got around kids, when he got around young people, when he got around children. He loved children. He loved to engage with children, and he would have them over the house. He was really big in publishing for young people. And it was literally the children that he taught who raised money to help fund his publishing venture and his whole entire business regarding educating folk about Black history. And he enjoyed taking little treats of candy with him when he would go out, and he would buy ice cream for the children. And when they mailed letters to him, they would mail him letters about possible topics. He would follow up. And I think, for many of us, that's the future, and if you don't engage with them in a way, I remember Erica Buddington coming on, talking about Langston Hughes. The kids would trample through his garden. Instead of, get off my lawn, he invested in these children and had them grow things. And instead of trampling on the garden, they protected the garden and cultivated the garden. And the garden in this case is the mind. And Carter G. Woodson did that with books and literature, and helped, I'm sure, generations of young people, because he lived quite a long time. So that's how I want to finish that.